All right, everyone, welcome to another edition of What's What BR. We have a special guest today with us from the Brighton Academy. Cheryl, how are you?
I'm well. How are you today?
I told somebody the other day, I'm loving the weather. It's cool enough to where I feel like I should be working outside, and I'm stuck inside. So
Yep, I hear you. I hear that as well.
it's it's been wonderful. So tell for anybody that doesn't know, give us what's the kind of Reader's Digest version of who you are and what you're doing over at the Brighton School, and a
Okay,
little bit about the Brighton School.
absolutely. So, yes, and I noticed at the beginning you said Brighton Academy, and at one point in our history it was Brighton Academy, but it is the Brighton School. We are a first through 12th grade institution that is focused for students with dyslexia and other language-based learning differences. We serve right now 182 students. In this administration's 5-year term, we've doubled the size of the school. So we're really happy with the fact that our name and the services that we provide students who learn differently is getting out there into the greater Baton Rouge community. Presently, we serve students in 7 parishes. So we have kids coming from across the river as far east as Mandeville. We have one student who is from North Louisiana and stays here during the week and goes home on the weekends. So, we are a very busy institution growing and really striving to help as many students as we possibly can in the space that we have.
That is. I can't imagine driving across the river every day here and much.
They have to really plan for that for sure. But what's so wonderful is that these families are committed to getting their children the services that they need. That throughout the course of their children's lives, some of those kids are in high school now, and depending on when they enter the school, at what entry point they select, some of those kids have never had services to the depth that we provide here at Brighton. They may have gotten services through their 504 plans or their IEPs in the public school. But I think what sets us apart here is the fact that every one of my teachers is specifically trained in dyslexia practices. So whether even Mr. Henderson, our executive director, he's taken 54 hours of training on how to work with children with dyslexia. And so this year he's teaching a civics class to seniors, and he's having to apply those skills and strategies with his senior students. So we have a very highly trained staff who range from the 54 hours like Mr. Henderson all the way up to, we have, certified academic language practitioners, certified academic language therapists, and teachers, myself and Ms. Hastings, who can teach teachers in dyslexia therapy. So, we are very proud of that investment in our teachers so that they can provide the most effective, the most up-to-date, and the most appropriate practices and strategies and approaches to our kids.
Sounds like a very busy place with a lot of people that care.
Yeah. We really do believe that the faculty that's here have been called here. It's a very complex institution in that there's not one child that looks like another child. Academically or socially, or within their executive functioning skills. So when I walk into a class, it's kind of like a beautiful gumbo of different personalities, different skill sets, different needs. And our teachers have to be very nuanced and very skilled at how they tackle a class of 10 or a class of 8 kids. And our classes are not big by design. My first grade has 6 kids, and that's our max. We're capped at 6. Wow. Our second grade is capped at 8, and our largest classes are capped at 12, and that's into the high school areas. So we do that intentionally because every kid is so different, and our motto being teaching students the way they learn. I don't necessarily have 2 students that learn precisely the same way. So there's a lot of complexity in it and a lot of tapping into the resources that we have on campus, but also to external resources so that we can get those kids what they need. Time is of the essence. If I've got a kid coming in first grade, we read some research today that said for every year of intervention after first grade, it gets increasingly more difficult to make up that time for a student. And so if I get a child at 10th grade, time is of the essence. We've got to make up a huge amount of progress in a very short window of time. So, we have to really be prepared for those kids no matter where they enter, because it becomes urgent for them.
I'm severely dyslexic myself personally. And so I've had to, kind of deal with it on my own, to figure out, I wasn't diagnosed until I think it was like 18 or 19, with a formal, diagnosis. But so I've kind of had to learn my own path of kind of how to do things. And then most recently we started putting a publication out about, I guess 6 or 8 months ago now, called Kid Scoop News, because it was staggering to me. I found someone brought me a statistic that was talking about how the 3rd grade reading levels. And I bring this up only because I know, like, for me, you can hand me a page and ask me to read it, and people will say, like, are you done? And I'm like, no, I'm still reading it. Just, bear with me. It takes me a while. But like those 3rd grade reading levels is where they start the algorithm to figure out how many prison beds that they're going to make. And it blew me away. And then they described it to me as, up until 3rd grade, you're learning how to read. And then from 3rd grade on, you're reading to learn.
Correct.
And if you get behind there, it's just, it drops. It's like the curve just falls. And so where you're saying time is of the essence, it blew me away to the point to where we actually now put a publication out to, all 1st through 5th grade, for, kids to actually kind of learn some of those activities and different things of that nature. So, because it's so important that one shift can make that big of a difference.
And that's absolutely correct. And that's just on the academic side, so think about the child who has fallen behind that curve that doesn't get a diagnosis or doesn't get intervention or doesn't find someone skilled to do that additional tutoring in a therapeutic program. And they've gone through 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th, right? And now there's a whole lot of internal issues that you have to deal with. I always talk about this sort of vision of every child walking through our doors, and they have an invisible backpack. And in that backpack is every school-based, home-based situation that surrounds their academic growth and development, or their social emotional development. And when the older kids get, the more frustration, the more negative thinking, the more the deeper their perception that they will never read, that they are lazy, that they are stupid, that they can't handle certain things. And so when we meet with families that come and visit us, we talk about that, and that every kid has to dump the backpack out. And really, even every parent has to dump the backpack out, their own backpack, so that they can take out what's positive, put that back in, and replace what's negative with other positive school experiences. Because it's sort of like, a diamond that's been buried in mud, and you don't know you have a diamond until you clean it and you peel out the layers, and then all of a sudden you have this jewel, right? And that's the way we look at our kids, is that, if I've got a child coming in at 1st grade, they may have had maybe not such a positive experience at pre-KK. And you do see the impact of that, but we have the ability to change that very rapidly in a young student. But if I've got a 7th grader, an 8th grader, even a 5th grader that has gone through a lot of schooling and hasn't gotten the help that he or she needs, we've got to dump the backpack, and we've got to show them that we know what we're doing, that we believe in their ability, that our job is to support them and give them the tools that they need. And there's often some hesitancy in that because they're not, that kids size you up, right? And they're trying to figure out, do you mean what you say and say what you mean? And once they figure that out, and once they know that there are a lot of other kids like them, that they're not the only one, which a lot of kids believe they're the only one that has a learning difference, and that these people here understand them and they're going to support them, then we start to see those experiences in the backpack become more positive. Then you have more risk taking. Then you have more openness to the learning process. And that's when you really start to see more results. Until they understand who they are from a learning difference standpoint, and until they have faith in us, then, we have to work at that. But eventually they come around, and eventually they're like, oh my gosh, this is where I'm supposed to be. Some kids feel it immediately upon walking on campus. They like, oh my gosh, this is the best. Some kids, are a little more uncertain, but by and large, what we hear from our families, and especially kids that come to us later, they'll tell us we've gotten our child back. We now see our child again, and home life improves, the child's perception improves, the family's perception improves, and now you're more like you're just a typical kid. You're just in a school that is designed for you. You're not in a school that's designed for some other reason. We're going to take you as far as you can, as fast as you can, and get you as prepared as we can for whatever your next step is. And we're going to do it in the way that suits you best. So
No, and I think that's, it was hard for me, learning, just as a child, like you had to do it differently, and then it would get to where, I don't want to do the homework, or it was,
right.
I don't want to do it. And then it wasn't that, would get mad at parents, it was like, well, I didn't want to mess with the homework. Well, then no, they need you to do the homework. Well, you're not doing the homework. And then that turns into it. Everything just keeps escalating. And it's like, no one's unearthed the original problem, of what it was, that it's not even a problem. It's just, hey, we need to recognize, and we're going to have to, do this a little bit differently. And so
well, the interesting things about, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say it's different. It really is. And once people realize that it's not a problem, you just got to change the angle of attack, I guess. Maybe, would be.
Well, and I think there's a big part of it for families is that they don't necessarily understand what it is. So when we talk to families that come and visit us that have received a dyslexia diagnosis, we help them understand, and we do this in our parent forums. Next Thursday is our first parent forum of the year, where we talk about the neurology of the brain and what a dyslexic brain looks like. You now can get brain scans, functional MRIs, and you can see parts of the brain that are firing or not firing as it comes to language and reading. But what we try to help our families understand is, this is neurobiological. It's genetic. And if you trace somewhere along your family tree, someone had that genetic switch. And it happens in gestation. It happens at 6 months gestation, where the switch gets flipped on or flipped off. And that for some people is hard to grasp. That this is something that really they have no control over, that it's part of the DNA. And you might have one child that's dyslexic and you will have 2 more kids that are not. And so that we try to help our parents understand. We also try to help our parents understand that the neural pathways are there. They just need to sort of be rerouted. So one analogy I sort of say to my families is, you're starting in Baton Rouge and you want to head to Houston by way of Chicago and Little Rock and then down to Houston. You're going the long way around. And what we try to help our families understand is that it's okay. It's not necessarily the most efficient way. You're still going to get there. But what we want to try to help our kids do is kind of shortcut. Maybe they only have to go to Little Rock instead of Chicago to get to Houston. So, part of our mission here at Brighton is to help our parents understand the complexity of their children, and help them understand what it actually feels like to be dyslexic. So at our first forum, we do dyslexic simulations where we put them in situations where they can't read the text, or they can't understand how to create a specific shape, because the position of perception we put them in is different. And when they experience that, all of a sudden they're like, my gosh, how tired they are, how much brain power it took to do the task. And then the epiphany comes in is, my kid does this every day, for 6, 7, 8 hours a day. And I've done this for 20 minutes and now I get it. I understand. And so it's very eye-opening to families. And once, if that's been a struggle for a family and they have that experience, there's a lot of relief, but there's also a lot of regret, because, they haven't necessarily all had the right information or the necessary information for them to help their child. And, our response to that is, you've done the very best that you could with the information that you had. And now you've got more information and we can help you along this process. So, really we're as much educating the families as we are the children, so that family cohesion can be there too. So it's highly complex. I mean, that's the word I keep coming back to, is it's complex.
And I'd forgotten how difficult it was. I kind of, once you get out of school and you get into a career and you're learning, when you know how to do those things, and for years, it was, it almost like it didn't affect me, but where I can tell you it came back, and it came and hit me hard, is I went and decided that my new hobby was going to be flying airplanes. So I had to go learn how. And it put me right back into the books and right back into the math and reciprocal numbers and, form. And it hit me. And I had to sit there and kind of go dig into it and go, this is going to be hard. This is going to be really hard. And I got to figure out how to do this again, because I hadn't had to learn something completely new. And it was just, I talked to a couple other people that had been in the same boat, and they explained to me, they were like, I'm letting you know, you can do it, but it's going to be really hard. It's going to be harder than you think it's going to be. It's going to be harder than it would be for somebody else, because there is so much where you get some things transposed, it makes a difference, but when you're in the air, it makes big differences.
Yeah.
So it was a shock, but I was able to get through it, kind of just being an adult and had to do it on my kid. But from a parent's perspective, nobody sat and watched me, when I was learning to, do this kind of flight school and learning. I just had to do it on my own. Nobody was watching, nobody was running through. But what would a parent do, or somebody who's maybe listening now? Like, where's that, did you see them? Is it just, are they saying they don't want to do homework because they don't want to do homework, or they're saying they don't want to do homework because they don't understand? Or is it, they do it in this whole, show your work, thing. It's like, maybe they got the answer, but they didn't know how to show the work, like what should they be looking for that would maybe say, we need to come talk to you. We think there might be something here.
Yeah.
Because we constantly have our kids, for all of us that have multiple kids, and I've got twins. And one of the things they told me with the twin boys was, never compare. Don't compare them. Don't compare them. And it's like, kind of have to at some point. Like, there's something, different here.
Yeah. That's really hard for parents. And and it doesn't necessarily have to be a twin. It's, siblings, they're all different. And so I think one of the things that parents should trust is their instincts. I think parents get a clue, or they get indicators that a child may be struggling much earlier than they realize. So, how quickly did their child obtain language? When did they start cooing? And when did they start mimicking their parents? And when did they start putting together simple words or small phrases? Was language early to come, or was language delayed? How about their body coordination? And I'm talking like birth to 3, 4, 5. Okay, at this point, how is their coordination? How is their ability to control a crayon, hold on to objects, keep their body in control? How is their ability to attend? Interestingly, it's really about age 3 where you really start to see whether a child has the ability to attend for a given amount of time or not. So there's a lot of early indicators where a child may be at risk for a learning difference. But I think sometimes when kids get into school, we talk more about they may just be, he's a boy. Boys acquire language later than girls. He's busy, but I don't think this is ADHD. And that's one thing I think it's really important for your listeners to realize, that dyslexia and ADHD tend to be comorbid. They tend to run together. And so you might have a child where you have ADHD indications. So they're inattentive, or they move around a lot. If they're asked to do a task, maybe they get up and avoid it. And we attribute that to ADHD, but sometimes it's really dyslexia. And sometimes dyslexia can present as ADHD. So you have to be really kind of aware of that fact in and of itself. But, I always look at, when I talk to parents, what time of day are you asking the kids, what time of day are they doing their homework? Are they a child that needs to come and run and have energy and get exercise before they sit down and do it? Are they a child that's expected to go immediately after 7 or 8 hours of learning to go home and get that homework done? Are they noticing that there's a lot on a page? The page is very full, maybe small print, maybe small areas in which to do work, blanks that might not be long enough for them to put answers in the blanks. So is the frustrational level going up because of quantity, a lack of white space, small text, etc.? Is the language such that it's unfamiliar to the child? Is the child able to verbally tell you what they need to do or what the answers are, but they can't translate it to the paper? I've got a lot of kids that can tell me what to do, but if I said, okay, now write that down for me, their ability to take what's in their head and put it into the written word is compromised. So, looking at those sorts of things, are we asking the child to sit until it's finished? Or are we okay with doing 3 problems and a break, 3 problems and a break? Do they have the tools that they need? Are they organized at home? Is their binder organized? Do they have a process through which they do the homework? Do they have to do it online and do an electronic submission, or can they do it by paper and take it in? These are all factors that play into success at homework, but they also reflect a child's ability to organize his or her life, which falls under the executive function column of school life. Organization, planning, task initiation, impulse control, all of those sorts of things can be often are a byproduct of a child with a learning difference. So, it's not as easy to tease out the homework issue. Like here at Brighton, we teach our kids how to do homework. So just the Monday after we came back from Hurricane Ida was the first time they went home with homework. Since school started, we've been teaching organization of materials. What materials do I need to have at the ready to do my homework? How do I organize my binder so everything has a place? Everything is dated. All of our students have the same binder. All of our binders are organized in the same way, whether they're in first grade or whether they're in 12th grade. How do I use our student system, our online system, so that I know how to submit my work successfully? Where do I find my assignments? How do I access my downloads? What's my workspace at home? Do I have everything I need at home? Can I work with music? Can I work with TV? We played all sorts of scenarios out for our kids, first grade to 12th grade. And then we throw in organization of time. How much time does it take me to do this task? What's my estimate? If it took me longer, why? If I was quick at getting my homework, getting that task done, why? So we're wanting them to be able to be thoughtful and plan well, so that when they get to that age where they have volleyball, they have 2 papers due on a certain day, that they're able to back plan from due dates and get their lives in order, so that we're not having a battle at home the night before, a paper or a project is due, because we didn't plan accordingly. So that piece goes into the homework arena too. And the other thing for us, and honestly, there really is no research out there that substantiates that large quantities of homework after school is beneficial for any child. I mean, we don't like as adults going home and doing an extra 2 hours worth of homework. And I understand that there are college prep schools and schools designed to move kids on at a quick pace. For our kids, we're going to give some homework, but we're not going to bury them, because their cognitive load every single day far exceeds what yours might be or mine might be, because they're really having to work. And if they're ADHD on top of it, the task is doubly difficult. They're having to keep that mindset up. I'm in class. I have to focus. I have to, have my materials ready. I have to be ready to participate. I have to, take all this information in, hold it in my brain long enough to use it successfully. And then I want them to go home and do another 2 hours without the supports necessarily that they have in the classroom. It doesn't make sense for us. So we'll give some, and that kind of grows as they move into high school. But even my high school students, we don't bury them, because the results that we get are not always what we want them to be. So why set them up in a situation where they're going to not necessarily be as successful as we hope? Does that make sense?
That is, no, absolutely. That's ringing true. Kind of made me wish I was there, make life a little bit easier, for me. So with that said,
it has to be that way for us, but I mean, the thing that breaks my heart most is when, there's a lot of things that I worry about with these kids, because they are bright, they have average to above average intelligence. Our graduates have gone on and done great things, both in college, in the professional world, in the entrepreneurial world. So I worry about, pigeonholing our kids, that there's only one way to go, and that might be college. I think we've got kids that have started businesses on their own and make more money than I do. We have, a guy who, tried to start out at BRCC, and now he has a job at Shintech, and he's making 6 figures welding. And he came in to see me. He said, "Ms. O, that I can't be in a classroom. I have to have my hands busy." And helping our kids figure out where that path is. My kids who know they're going to go into the trades. I've got a junior who's already welding. I've got kids who have bright futures ahead of them. And I want them to be able to have the tools that they need. I want them to be able to have the strategies in place for them to support themselves in whatever that endeavor is. But really, most importantly, I want them to know that they can do whatever they put their mind to it. Just like you decided to fly planes, I want them to be able to dream big. So, if they need to read audio books, because we call that ear reading, and it fires the same parts of the brain that reading with your eyes does, then let them ear read. They don't have to necessarily look at a book if they're auditorily strong and they comprehend better from an auditory standpoint than a visual standpoint. I want them reading everything that they can through their ears, not with their eyes. But then again, sometimes that doesn't play itself out. So they've got to know how to read. They've got to know how to decode. They've got to know how to find the salient information. So I think as research grows and our ability to study the human brain and the language acquisition process that happens at birth and goes on through life, the more refined and the more effective our approaches and strategies are going to be. And the sooner we get them, the better off we are and the better off they are. But sometimes that just doesn't happen. And so we try to work as much magic as we can and as quickly as we can.
Well, sounds like you guys are doing amazing things over there. And there's probably a long list of people that could use it, as well.
Oh, 1 in 5. Think about that. 20% of the population, it's estimated, has dyslexia. 1 in 5. So if you're in a public school and you've got 25 kids in your classroom, in all likelihood, you have at least 5 students that have a language-based learning difference. And that includes not only dyslexia, but dysgraphia, which is the writing process, being able to express oneself in written form. Dyscalculia, which is math, its own unique language, right? And then you've got the ability to take information in and process it. You have the ability through eyes and through ears. So there's auditory processing, the speed with which we process information is impacted through learning differences. The ability to retain information and use it, our working memory can be compromised by learning differences. So it's not just sort of like dyslexia, but I can have a child that is dyslexic, has slow processing speed and slow working memory. That child's going to work really hard. We have to be really, really a hardworking kid. And our message to our kids is, it's going to take you longer. You're going to have to work harder. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. I have a student that I tutor who goes to a local school, not Brighton. And I've tutored her since she was a 4th grader. And she's a diagnosed dyslexic with auditory processing deficiencies. And she's a sophomore now. And I saw her yesterday and we were talking about what she wanted to do. And I just looked at her. I said, "What have I told you ever since I started working with you?" She said, "I can do anything I want, but I'm going to have to work harder and smarter than everybody else." And she's got the best work ethic because we developed that early. And she knows how to accommodate. She knows she might not always test the best, but boy, she can do great work on projects and she never misses homework assignments. And so she might not always test well, but she's got the strategies where she can, still get really good grades using her areas of strength. She gets a little bit anxious on the testing side. Well, she's got all this other stuff to bolster her, but she's very comfortable with the fact that, she's a dyslexic, but it isn't going to stop her unless she allows it to stop her. So that's so many messages we try to get to our kiddos, but that's a big one, is to advocate and to know who you are, celebrate who you are, not be defined by your learning difference, and go out and set your goals and work hard.
Well, I think that sums it up right there. You guys got a lot going on, and I think that really does. I think it sums it up. I think that's where, if more people knew what you guys were doing, like you said, 1 in 5.
1 in
so
5.
It's probably now. I guess I'll kind of wrap us, here on the end. Do you guys do the testing as well for parents to find out?
So we do, and I was going to add on before we signed off here. We do offer free screenings. So Teresa Hastings, who is our director of reading therapy and testing, we do free screenings, and anybody could call the school and set up a free screening. We don't do testing externally. So if a parent wanted to know whether or not their child had a learning difference, we would refer them to any number of the local educational psychologists in town and recommend that they do a full-scale psychoeducational evaluation. Now, our screening can tell us whether there are areas at risk but we can't diagnose. We're not educational psychologists. So if we had a student come in and we did a screening, and let's say they showed high level at risk for working memory, high level at risk for phonological awareness, then Teresa would say, it's my recommendation that you go seek out a psychoeducational evaluation. And then that is far more in depth than, a screening tool is for us. We do regular walkthroughs on Wednesdays at 9 a.m. So we can make appointments for those, and our director of admissions, Angel High, and the rest of the administrative team meets with the families, and we talk about the school. We give them a tour. We take them into classrooms and give them a sense of what Brighton is like in our admissions process. We do have teachers here that will tutor students. And I say that because I know for some tuition, even though our tuition is very reasonable, for some tuition can be prohibitive. But we do have teachers, and we have students from outside of Brighton that come and get reading therapeutic services from us. And then in the summers, we have our Brighton summer camps, both for elementary and for middle high school students, that are open to everybody. Any of our educational forums are open to everybody. And actually in October, we're having our first symposium on the October 30th that will be open to teachers, homeschool families, parents, anybody that wants to come and learn more about dyslexia, executive functioning skills, social pragmatics, anything that we can possibly provide to help families, teachers, administrators, students, pre-service students at LSU come and learn more about this. We are committed to helping provide information on that. So they can always visit our website, www.thebrightonschool.org, for further information on those events. And then, if anybody just wants to shoot off an email and say, can I just talk to someone? Any of us here are willing to do that. It's important. We have kids that need what we have to offer, and whether it's through a parent, whether it's through a symposium, or whether it's in our classroom, we are happy to share the information that we have.
Well, I appreciate you sharing all this with us today. This was very informative. I hope some people got something out of it. I know I did. And it sounds like you guys have a lot going on. So,
well, I can't thank you enough for giving us your time and allowing us to talk about this wonderful school, but this part of education that we're also very passionate about. And we do. I
tell everybody you've got more important things to do than talk to me all day. So it's so I appreciate you making some time. We'll have to have you come back, kind of fill us in on what's going on.
We'd be happy to.
Got some things coming up, and we'll have some new information. We'll schedule it next month or so to come back and tell us what's happening.
Sounds great. Wonderful. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it, Brandon. You take care.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks. You too.